Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. In today's episode, Anthony Power and I are pleased to welcome Curtis Harris to the program. He's the Senior Director of Growth at Compass Mining and here to tell us all about their outlook, strategy, and growth initiatives in 2025. We've got a lot to cover. Before we get into it, take a second, smash the like button, you guys. It's a big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join. And let us know in the comments section below if you've heard of Compass Mining before, if you've ever used any of their services or products, and your outlook on the Bitcoin mining space in general as we move through 2025. And with that being said, let's get into today's interview. Okay guys, so that's right. Today's video, Anthony Power and I are joined by the Senior Director of Growth, Curtis Harris at Compass Mining. We were just saying in the introduction here, it's such a pleasure with Compass because we get to interview and talk to so many members of the team. Curtis, I know you were just promoted recently within the last few months here, obviously doing a great job at Compass, and we're looking forward to hearing more about this growth outlook and strategy in 2025.
Guys, what a pleasure to be here with you too. I enjoyed seeing you both in New York. We were at Pomp's Bitcoin Investor Week. That room was on fire. I am very happy to be here with both of you.
We're very happy to have you. Yeah, we've been fortunate to run into you a few times at the conferences, and you're right, New York was quite special with everything going on, obviously, in the States and the political environment right now. So first question for you, Curtis. We've met you a few times. We know you fairly well, but our audience hasn't. So can you give us a quick introduction to yourself, kind of your Bitcoin story, and then eventually this transition and new role at Compass?
Well, certainly, because we have a good relationship, I'm willing to be highly transparent with you and therefore your audience. But like my journey into Bitcoin was very natural, Bryce and Anthony. We're a one income family, 5 kids at home, and my background was construction, civil engineering, zoning, land use, regulatory approval. I used to be a suit and tie guy in front of city commissions, and frankly, I was earning more money than I thought I would make. Like when you go back to college or before college, and you're like, "Hey, what's a good income look like?" I was out earning my own expectations, but I was getting crushed by inflation. I literally couldn't afford braces. We had to go fill out the financing agreement to put one of our teenage kids into the braces. Like really being crushed by inflation. But at that time, I was able to consume a lot of content. We just mentioned Pomp. I had found Pomp's podcast. And right at that time is when Michael Saylor was doing his melting ice cube theory of Bitcoin, when he was taking MicroStrategy all in on Bitcoin. And it really was just, I'm getting crushed by inflation and I've discovered this new thing. So through literally hundreds of hours of investment in education into podcast and reading, like traveling to go to meetups and just really immersing myself in education, we ultimately went from being a one income family, as I said, to a no income family so that dad could find his lane in Bitcoin. But my background, in construction, it led me to mining. I wanted to work in hard asset infrastructure construction, and that led me to mining. But like I said, I'd been a suit and tie guy in front of city commission, so I'd really always been selling something, even since a 5-year-old. So representing something publicly had been kind of my calling, and that's where I gravitated to. Compass had an opportunity for me, and I'll get into my recent role. It blows me away, guys, that like 4.5 years ago, I was listening to hundreds of hours of podcasts, and Compass Mining was on all of them. Compass. And now here I am 4.5 years later that I'm leading that brand publicly. It just blows me away. I'm incredibly humble. I'm incredibly thankful. My my role, Senior Director of Growth. I have enjoyed a couple nice promotions. Mainly, I represent our company publicly. I go to a lot of events, as you said, and then I look to bring in, strong top of funnel strategic relationships where basically I'm a relationship person and it's all about working with people that you want to work with.
That's awesome, Curtis. I mean, you talk about your previous role in construction. In your time within Compass, have you been able to utilize some of that skill set? And because we've noticed Compass are now starting to build out some of their own facilities.
Yeah, certainly, but to a limited degree. We are a fairly large organization, and Shannon Squires, our chief mining officer, is also has a long background in actually building Bitcoin mines. So as my experience, like for example, some of the things when we launched a new operation in Pennsylvania, and I was one of the first people in there with making relationships with the local city council, the local government, and working through code compliance and zoning. So it's not always about drawing straight lines. It's also about building relationships, and I certainly have been able to leverage some of my experience there. I think when you're in mining, Anthony, everyone needs to have a strong understanding of energy and of infrastructure. So I think just having that as a background, plus the ability to, speak publicly or the desire to speak publicly and represent Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining has just been a good fit for me.
That's great. Hey, so I know you just talked about some of the role characteristics there, the top of funnel, large picture strategy, growth initiatives at Compass Mining. And it's so interesting to hear you talk about this transition over the past 4 years, because myself and Anthony were in the very same boat. We wanted to work in Bitcoin. We wanted to be around the community, wanted to get involved, and we just had to find our niche or our little piece of the pie here. As we know, Bitcoin is bigger than all of us, Curtis. So it's great we can get in here and help with our piece. And so I wanted to talk to you about some of these initiatives, these key growth focus areas in 2025 at Compass. You're new to the role. What is your plan for the year?
Well, I don't feel like I'm new to the role. I feel like I've been doing it, and the title caught up with me at the end of the year. It's always been about relationships and strategic partnerships for me, and I've worn a few different hats from leading marketing, which is helpful. You need to be able to publicly represent your product, across even Google AdWords, et cetera. But I've always been a people person, and that's really what I'm doing is just continuing to build industry relationships and bring things in. But our initiatives, Bryce, are vertical integration. I know you may have heard that from some of the other Compass people who have been on, but it's real. We figured out several years ago that no one cares more about our miners than we do. So the ability to have our teams operating inside of facilities is best, and then being able to own and operate that facility where we own it and we control the power, we own the ground, we own the container, where we're able to control our own destiny. So vertical integration is by far and away our biggest objective for 2025.
That's great. And we wanted to actually get an update on the Iowa facility because this was a landmark announcement for Compass, a 30 megawatt facility. It's the first one that you guys have really owned from the ground up in that vertical integration approach, Curtis. So I know we were supposed to energize in January. We had an update saying there were some slight delays there. Can you give us or provide an update on that, I guess, flagship facility for Compass Mining?
Yeah, I will. I'll share several points, and if there's more that you'd like to know, just feel free to ask. So, it is delayed. It turns out Bitcoin mining is hard, and getting a new site energized is incredibly difficult. And even that's something Shannon, our chief mining officer, had shared. We were looking at a January energization date, and he says, Curtis, I've never seen a site energize on time. So that was the ambitious goal. And where we're at now is we're still delayed on electrical infrastructure. It's switchgear. The local code inspector wanted to see a particular type of disconnect that the container didn't come with. We expected that we were in line with code compliancy, but you have to satisfy the local inspector. So we needed to order a different type of disconnect. So switchgear for the electrical infrastructure. And it's been ordered. We expect it within another week. because of our electrical agreement with the local utility, we're going to energize on April 1st. So we expect to be ready to energize. And in fact, they'll let us spin up a small amount of load just to be able to test our systems a little bit more fully. But the facility should go completely live on April 1st. And just to clarify a couple of the details around it, we believe it's a 38 megawatt facility. And what we have is 8 megawatts going live in just a few weeks. So those containers are installed. They've got concrete under them. There's data cables. The machines are literally plugged in, waiting for the electricity to come. So we're going to go live with 8 megawatts on April 1st. But parallel to that, we're building out an additional 30 megawatts. So we're currently working with the utility company on a load study. We feel confident that the energy is there, but it's been a bit since that load study was completed. So we're reconfirming that load study with them, and then it's going to require a substation build out, which is something Compass hasn't typically been able to capitalize. But when you own your own facility and you can control your own destiny, then you can capitalize for infrastructure projects like that. We're very excited about it.
In terms of timelines for the 30 megawatts, I mean, we spoke to many of the public miners, and getting the power in place is the biggest challenge. They can put up these facilities really, really quickly, and it's just rinse and repeat. But to get the power, the substation in, and order those parts for these facilities can take quite long lead times. Do you have an expectation of when you'll get closer to finalizing that extra 30 megawatts?
Yeah, so I know, we're not publicly traded. I don't have any need to try to appease the markets. It's going to be 6 to 9 months to build out that substation. And when we thought we were going to be able to energize in January, and obviously we missed that by several months, we went with the plan to deploy containers because it was quicker. We would prefer to operate in a building, and again, this being a site that we own and control. We're likely going to build a building for the additional 30 megawatts. And so the building, the structure is the easy part. The electrical infrastructure beside it is the hard. So 6 months is the minimum. And just as Shannon, we mentioned, nothing happens on time. So 6 to 9 months, we fully expect to energize the rest of that site this year in 2025, which is fantastic for Compass and Compass's customers.
In terms of the first part, the 8 megawatts, which will hopefully be energized in literally a few weeks' time, is this going to? I mean, I'm assuming, is this for new business, or are you relocating business that's currently maybe hosted in other facilities into your own facility?
Yeah, so for that initial 8 megawatts, it's a balance between large customers who are aware that we have this, this downtime situation where they want to be deployed into that facility for, economic reasons, and now we're waiting together. And then some Compass-owned machines. What we don't want is to have our retail customers sitting there and waiting for that site to be energized with their machines offline. So if things go live right away, then we'll probably start to phase out any Compass-owned machines into new customers, so that our new customers can, or new customer purchases, so that they can have what. I'll go into this briefly. What we really discovered is serving that retail customer, and let me talk about it for a minute. Is that if you're a pleb, if you're like me, you found Bitcoin and you want to mine Bitcoin because you figured out the advantages of that. If you own one machine, you want your machine on all the time. Not like turned off on Sundays because the wind's not blowing, like all the time you want your machine on. And then what we really learned is that you want zero wait between the time you've decided to purchase and the time that your miner is deployed. So what we've found is our turnkey miner, where it's online and hashing to your pool within 48 hours, is the best offering we have. So as that site goes live and we have a new offering with machines, we'll phase out other machines and plug in new ones for customers that can be turnkey for them.
In terms of customers, then, I mean, to do it in 48 hours, that's really, really quick. I mean, how does that model work in terms of like the Are you providing a mining machine that the customer will end up physically repaying for, or are they having to get the machines delivered in a very short space of time so they can be plugged in to meet that 48 hours?
Yeah, so the logistics of it is really that machine is ready to be hashing to them immediately, but we under promise and over deliver with by asking for 48 hours. It's just a manpower consideration inside our team to do the pool configuration and to turn that machine on and get it pointed at them. So that's the solution, is that the machine is there ready to be turned on and hashing to them, and we just need internal manpower to get that configured. We also recently launched a payment plan which helps people. You're trying to make a decision here. You can buy an old generation miner on our marketplace for a few $100s, or you can buy new generation that is more efficient, but they cost thousands of dollars. So if you're new to this, you might want to take a payment plan approach. So that's been a recent advancement of ours.
It's interesting to hear you bring up the payment plan after the braces story, because it feels like it's gone full circle, Curtis. But in this situation, you guys are actually helping your clients or customers save and earn in Bitcoin as opposed to the fiat, which again has that inflation concern you talked about. So speaking of customer, Anthony just mentioned we talk about a lot of publicly traded Bitcoin miners on the channel. Why would someone want to become a customer and mine their own Bitcoin as opposed to invest in maybe a publicly traded Bitcoin company?
Well, yeah, that's actually so. I'll talk to you about that, but I hope we can have a little bit of a back and forth, because I was excited to, hear the opposite from you. I watch your show, and like I feel like you speak primarily to a stock market investing customer, retail investor. Obviously you have great connectivity across all the publicly traded companies. So if you're deploying your capital into the stock markets and you're choosing to deploy at Bitcoin mining companies, that makes perfect sense to me. So I was at a summit in College Station, Texas in 2022 called Miners Summit, hosted by John Sostak, who's become a good friend of mine, and he had Michael Saylor come in and speak to that. I was really disappointed. It was virtual. It was not live. If you know me at conferences, I'm certainly at that time I was in the front row writing down every word, and so I literally still have my notes from Saylor's virtual appearance there. But one of the takeaways I took from that is his advice was, and I've been following Saylor for a long time now, so this was important to me. He says, buy Bitcoin, mine Bitcoin, and invest in Bitcoin mining companies. And he said so in that order. So we're all going to make our own individual decisions. I'm all in on buying Bitcoin. And in fact, I think that we got a chance to share this maybe when we were together in New York, but like we're literally selling our house. Like, again, we've got a bunch of kids and the American dream. We've moved into a rental townhome inside a town. We lived on a couple acres in a rural farm. We're selling our house so that I can deploy my equity into Bitcoin. And that's how convicted I am. Then mining Bitcoin, which I think is, again, my background led me. I wanted to work in Bitcoin, right? That's just a no-brainer. I wanted to work in Bitcoin, and my background led me to mining. But there's two major reasons that I think about mining Bitcoin. One, it's generally the lowest marginal cost to acquire Bitcoin. If you're looking at buying spot or mining Bitcoin today, it could be competitive or spot could be better. But if you look over a 4 to 5 year period, if you're consistently mining Bitcoin, you're historically going to stack more sats by mining it than if you were deploying the same dollars at buying Bitcoin. So that's where I first start with. And the second one is maybe a little bit more of a fuzzy topic. You start to get into like freedom money, right? We all know fix the money, fix the world. And we see government overreach and CDBCs and, countries trying to control their citizenship. When you mine Bitcoin, you're generating non-KYC Bitcoin. So you obviously have all the, proper reporting and responsibilities that you have as a citizen of your nation, and you have to tell your government everything you have to tell your government, but it's up to you. If you're buying Bitcoin on an exchange, you have been KYC'd, your government knows you own that Bitcoin. But if you're mining Bitcoin, you've acquired that Bitcoin, one, at typically the lowest marginal cost, and two, it's non-KYC Bitcoin. So because I am, again, I'm all in on Bitcoin. I am ignorant to why someone chooses to deploy capital at a pubco. My guess is that they've got their capital locked in an ecosystem. It's in their 401k, or it's with their trader, and that they are able to deploy that, those resources at a mining stock. Like, we were together in New York. I was extremely bullish on the public miners who was there. Fred Thiel from Marathon really left me energized. Jason Less from Riot. I heard him just really preach, I felt like, about the benefits of Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining and all of the advancements that they were taking. So I'm very passionate about the large players in our industry. But why do people, your audience as an example, why do they choose to invest in a Bitcoin mining stock and not necessarily look at mining Bitcoin themselves?
Well, one of the reasons they look at Bitcoin mining stocks from an investment perspective is they like the volatility of the actual stock itself. Bitcoin, we know Bitcoin is a volatile asset. It's been volatile for the last 14 years. And we've seen this last few weeks, even since we got back from New York. Bitcoin's down 14, 15% in that short period of time, reached its all-time high back in December. And, we're scratching our heads. There's only been good news stories. But you got to remember, Bitcoin is an asset class, and there are so many things happening in the world out there outside the Bitcoin bubble that are affecting not just Bitcoin price, but affecting the markets, affecting safety. We've got a couple of wars going on at the moment that aren't doing any good for anywhere. We've got the president announcing tariffs literally day on, day off,
Yeah.
and that's not helping the markets. And so, we've seen a decline. Obviously, those people that have been in Bitcoin mining the last 3 or 4 months will have noticed their portfolios probably dropping by maybe 50%, because, that's the average price reduction for the mining stocks. Whereas Bitcoin hasn't dropped as significant. But miners like those days, and we've seen days where mining stocks can raise 30, 40, 50% in a day. And, on those days, everyone likes being the mining stocks. I mean, listening to your last comment there, I mean, to be selling your house and putting it into Bitcoin, that's a bold move. And we've seen some of those stories over the last few years where people have done the same thing. I haven't
Listen, Anthony, I still own chairs. Okay, I'm not one of those crazies who sold the chairs. I'm just selling the house. And like, if you can imagine that it was a big decision to quit my job. Again, I was making more money than I ever thought I would make, and we left that behind. That wasn't a decision I took lightly. It was certainly in prayer and with deep conversation with my wife. And so the decision to sell the house is also a massive one. And I'll be frank as to how I'm looking at it. I believe entirely that the equity I can pull out of
Yeah.
my house now in 5 years will buy a whole house. So like, we need a home. There's utility value to having a place to live, but I'm at a 5 year window. I'm buying Bitcoin. I'm a long-term holder, and I think that any 4 to 5 year cycle, you are going to be happy that you acquired Bitcoin.
Just to go back on that point you mentioned before. I mean, I'm assuming that obviously you've been buying Bitcoin, for quite a while now, since you effectively were orange pilled yourself and you explained that moment. But I'm assuming that you're also mining you have some mining rigs, maybe with Compass as well, because the way you were talking about it, it was as if you were mining, not the company mining.
Yeah, yeah. So let me tell you about that. For one, like, man, I am out of dry powder. We have thrown, like, to the point you got to sell the house. We have thrown everything at it, and we're blessed that here at Compass we have a 401k. We're a large company. We have a very good HR team and benefits. We're really a wonderful place to work, and because of that, we have a 401k. And we worked hard to find a 401k that would let us deploy some of it into crypto. And man, I hate that word. I'm all in on Bitcoin. Bitcoin, but they limit me from putting my contribution into 401k. They limit me to only 20% being able to go into Bitcoin, and they don't even do automated buys. I'm constantly in customer service saying, hey, I'm having to come in here, every couple of weeks and make a new purchase, automate this for me. So I am continuing to DCA. I've certainly I use the Strike app is where I prefer to DCA when I'm looking at what I'm going to do with my housing proceeds. I'm planning on using River. My friend Vinny leads mining operations at River. That's where I'm planning to have my home proceeds wired and then DCA from those proceeds. I do mine Bitcoin, but let me tell you about that journey. I mentioned we moved into a rental. In my old home, I ran a couple miners. So I had my first miner that was given to me by Nick Foster at Kaboom Racks. Nick's in the Kansas City area where I'm at. He's become a good friend. He literally gave me my first miner, an S9, and like that makes no money, but it took me from 0 to 1, and I used that machine to heat my garage. And then after I got an S19, so an S19J Pro that is a lot louder, it takes a lot more electricity and a lot more heat, I use that to heat my entire basement. And then I had that ran, so it ran 24/7 all year long. And then during the winter months, it pumped heat into the basement, which dramatically cut my home heating bill while I was there generating Bitcoin. And then during the summer months or even spring, because it is so hot, I had it taking cold intake air from one side of the house and hot air to the other side of the house, venting outside of the house. And I'll tell you right now, since we moved in mid-December, so 3 months now, I've not been mining, and it crushes me, Anthony. So you put your finger right on a pain point of mine.
Sorry, go on, Bryce.
I wanted to just come back on that topic too, Anthony. This is a great discussion. So my answer to your question, Curtis, and maybe this can kind of be a learning opportunity for both of us here. The main reason I think people invest in the Bitcoin mining stocks, Anthony nailed it, volatility, and also volatility you can trade both ways. So people can play the up or the down. The big reason for me are the tax benefits holding a lot of these mining stocks or Bitcoin ETFs in tax leveraged or tax advantage accounts. However, Anthony and I both own Bitcoin as well. We're very bullish on Bitcoin. We're continuing to buy Bitcoin. The big reason, and we've talked about even trying to get a sample miner going, a seal miner potentially at Compass. For us, though, it's the technical barrier. I know a lot about Bitcoin. I know a lot about public markets. I know very little about how computers work or mining works or ASICs works. So for someone like me who's in the community, we talk about Bitcoin all the time. That is in my mind, at least, a barrier to entry. What would you say from Compass's perspective for people like that would love to get into mining, but maybe are a little nervous?
Well, let me say several things. First of all, you can do it, right? It's inside of your skill set. The challenge is that they are hot, and I mean they are really hot. They're like heat your house hot. And they are also very loud. How loud are they? They are sleep on the couch loud. If you are married and you turn this thing on at home, you are now immediately in trouble with the wife and family. And then the third thing is that they actually consume a lot of electricity. So what I did in my residence, my last residence is took a dryer line. We were lucky that the home had 2 dryers. I took a dryer line, a 220 amp circuit, and was able to just put a new plug on that, custom plug that ran my Bitcoin miner. So at the point that you've got the right amount of electricity, you can run one miner at home. All it takes is a data cable and a pool configuration. And both of those things are pretty darn simple. But the reason that a company, honestly, we created a retail product where you or I or Anthony, we could deploy one miner, and it's usually so expensive to do at home. We just don't have cheap enough electricity. The economics don't make sense unless you're like me and you value that non-KYC coin at an additional perspective and you're mining for the long term. So if you wanted to be able to mine Bitcoin, you did not have the option to send 1 or 5 machines into one of the large facilities where they had the right amount of electricity, they had the infrastructure, they could handle the heat and the noise. So many years ago, we invented that model. There's been since, several people who have, come into the market and they offer a buy and host strategy. strategy, but we made it really easy. You can go to our marketplace, you can buy one miner, it's online and mining to your pool within 48 hours. We never touch any of your Bitcoin. It goes directly where into your wallet through your pool. You pay us every month for an electricity bill. It's pretty interesting. You mentioned a seal miner, so I'm a big fan of BitDeer. I was lucky, my background is energy, electricity. I have a lot of passion about that. I'd become friends with Samantha Robertson at BitDeer. She has since had her own promotions and leads that company in a variety of ways, but she has a real background in electricity and energy, and I learned a lot from her. So I'd be very passionate about more collaborations with BitDeer. You mentioned the seal miner, and the chance for us to maybe have some sort of collaboration. That would be a pleasure, Anthony and Bryce. Is that if we had a chance to work with BitDeer, we get one of their new seal miners that we could run at one of our facilities, and that Power Mining Analysis could now be mining Bitcoin with Compass and BitDeer. That would be amazing. I think I got really excited there. Did I answer your question though?
You did. I was glad you brought it back to Compass, because that was my concern about the retail model, and we would love to document the process of how this all works. My additional question would just be in terms of the pool and directing it to your wallet and kind of the technical setup with Compass. I assume you guys have a team that would kind of walk people through, okay, here's how you select a pool, here's how you set up your wallet address, all those steps, Curtis?
Yeah, it's actually really simple. If you're because we've done it thousands of times, right? We have 12,000 unique mining customers at our peak, and retail mining customers typically follow bull bear cycles, et cetera. So we have a really well built out onboarding process that helps step a customer step by step through it. So we do have partnerships with a variety of pools. You can pick your own pool. We are agnostic to that. So all you need to do is provide for us a pool address, and with your fully set up account, then the Bitcoin goes directly to you. So you're able to provide that pool address inside of your dashboard. It's very user friendly. So with a fully set up Compass account and a pool address, you're mining Bitcoin right away. It's really that easy. We do have a very robust team. So if you need help, a lot of Bitcoiners, frankly, like to, operate with anonymity, right? So they don't necessarily want to jump on a call. But if you would like to meet with our team, get specific questions answered, we're wildly available.
That's awesome. I can just picture it now. We get a machine from BitDeer, we have it hosted by Compass, and we have the DMG blockchain's Terra pool to receive the
There you
to,
go.
to receive the money through there. So it's basically the whole process is covered then, and we just sit back and wait for the profits to roll through. But no, that's a great analogy there to finish that part there. Turning back to vertical integration, which you discussed earlier in there, and the fact that you're now starting to own your own facilities, against going out to third-party customers. What can we expect next from Compass? I mean, we've talked about the 38 megawatts this year. What's the more future strategy maybe over the next couple of years?
I want to take a second there and to thank our other partners and to draw reference to we're not going to be able to build out all of the capacity that we need. It's expensive, guys, and we're a debt-free company, and people in Bitcoin who get levered, right? It hurts. So when you're trying to build out a facility and you're trying to pay for it with resources that you have, it is extremely expensive, and we need to operate in bite-sized chunks. We have high quality operator partners, and we're still signing new capacity agreements with someone they've built out a facility, and what they need is a strong off taker, somebody who knows how to operate and can fill miners, and that's us. So we, inside of those arrangements with third party facilities, we ideally we'll be able to operate it, where we'll be able to bring in our own manpower. And because we learned that, so let me use that to tie into an answer for your question about what looks forward to us. In addition to operating our own customers' equipment, we've also now for more than a year been operating third-party facilities for others. So you own a facility, it's your Bitcoin miners, but you need a high level of expertise in order to run it. We provide that service. It's been incredibly successful for us because we learned through trial by fire, right? We really learned by like making all of the mistakes 4 or 5 years ago and trying to not repeat them. We have become exceptionally good Bitcoin mining operators, and now that's a massive service of ours. We're currently operating 3 sites for third parties, about 25 megawatts in total, and we're signing new capacity. There's current agreements that are on the table, and internally we have a goal is to bring that number from 25 to 75 by the end of the year. So we want to be operating another 50 megawatts minimum for third parties. And so then the last thing I'll say is, you always have to be thinking about the next halving. Okay, I know, I think I had the Luxor dashboard up earlier. I think it's April of 2028. I believe I looked to see if I still had
Yes.
the screen up. Profitability is crucial. So the two things that we can control is efficiency of machine and then cost of operations, cost of electricity. So continually looking to put ourselves into facilities where we have favorable electricity agreements, where whether it's high uptime usage or you're looking at time of use in order to bring your overall costs of electricity down, and then efficiency of machines. And so constantly working with the manufacturers and vendors to make sure that our customers have access to the most efficient machines. That's the key to long-term profitability and surviving the next halving.
In terms of Bitcoin price, does that have much an impact on Compass's business at the moment?
Yes and no. So I think Compass is built of all Bitcoiners, and the majority of us are, we're in it for we're, 130, 140 employees, and the majority of us, global. We're a large international team. The majority of us are all in on Bitcoin, and like we're literally not watching the price, but it certainly has a massive impact on our customers. So if our customers aren't profitable, then that's not sustainable for us. So when Bitcoin price drops into 70s, but network difficulties up, and there's 800 exahash online, it makes older generation equipment less profitable. You'll dip below water and above water, and that's not sustainable. So paying attention to energy cost and machine efficiency long term, as well as controlling our own destiny with building and operating our own facilities, is really where our focus is, Anthony.
And with regards to energy, which is effectively the largest cost any miner faces during the life of that business. We speak to obviously many of the big public miners, and they're able to go out there and source some of the cheapest energy. And we've seen in the last set of earnings, the likes of Iron being able to achieve literally 3 cents a kilowatt hour using the market rate in Texas. Are Compass able to sort of like are they still constantly looking for the energy at sort of those levels of prices, or is it really size makes a difference when negotiating energy contracts?
It's really all of the above. And so let me give you a broad answer is that you can look at off grid, right? You can deploy in flared gas, and depending on what the value of that gas is and how long you amortize your gen set, you can have extremely low cost of energy. And that's one of the things that we heard Fred Thiel from Marathon speak about in New York, is that they're looking to not be purchasing grid power, to be behind the meter or off grid. That's where their best opportunities to create low cost of power is. And then I think the next step for obtaining low cost of power is at what level are you taking it? If you're able to take it at transmission level, where basically you have to build out your own substation and own that substation and not pay some of those additional transmission or distribution fees, that's the next thing that brings energy down. The third thing I'd say is markets where deregulated markets, where you're able to use strategies, whether it's curtailment or hedging or buying buying blocks of power. So utility companies are just like any business. They want to be able to foresee their, their customers' demands. And so if you're a large purchaser of electricity, you can negotiate a favorable agreement where you're buying a lot of electricity in advance. And like when I hear about iron and how by utilizing ERCOT. So ERCOT is probably the most well-known market in the country for deregulated power, which means you have freedom of choice. You can negotiate, interesting arrangements, and then you can use curtailment primarily, whether it's, a demand response where it's automated, or if it's just simply that you decide to turn your machines off or down as the cost of energy is too high or the price of Bitcoin's too low. So at Compass, we're probably because we're still operating in bite-sized chunks, right? Where we, an 8 megawatt facility that we can build up to 38 megawatts that we're able to get, inside of a local municipality, inside of a co-op, favorable electricity agreements, and then we'll capitalize that substation ourselves in order to lower costs for that additional 30 megawatts. So because of that, we're not seeing quite the same cost structures that say an iron is. And in fact, I'll say that iron is probably one of my favorite companies. The Roberts brothers, Dan and Will. Dan did a lot of podcasts when I was on a learning journey, and really passionate about who they are as an ecosystem. But because of their size and their capitalization, again, they're forward facing to the public markets. They're able to use market strategies to get capital. They can bring in a lower cost of energy than a company like Compass can. But
You raise
they
a good.
also don't offer hosting, Anthony. If you've got one miner or 5 miners, you are not sending it to our friends at Iris. You are sending it to Compass, and we've got them for sale in our marketplace, baby. Hey, I was that phrase ABC, right? Always be closing. And so as I thought of that little sales line right there, here's one. I don't know if we noticed, but we've got the ABCs of power mining right here. We got Anthony, Bryce, and Curtis. So
There you go.
I hope you use that in the plug for this podcast.
There you
Absolutely.
go.
In terms of, you mentioned a good point there about power prices and market rate, and obviously you're spread around lots of different facilities around the US. From a customer's perspective, I mean, they probably haven't got any say on curtailment, but I mean, how do you operate? I mean, if you're using other facilities, are you reliant on the host facility to use curtailment when prices rise, or is it more of a case of customers are getting more of a fixed cost of energy, or an expected cost of energy, which they pay monthly?
Yeah, let me answer that in several ways. So again, we serve really two major types of customers. We serve a retail customer, which is by far our largest volume of customers. They're a individual investor. They own between 1 to 5 miners, and they really do want their machine on all the time. And the agreement that we have with them is 95%. So when you think about an uptime, a 95% is the target that we have for our customers if their machines aren't on, and that's over the course of a year. So they might experience a higher amount of downtime in the summer or in the winter if the facility they're in is curtailing. But looking at the course of a year, 95% is our agreement with them. And they pay a flat fee for us. Every month they have an electricity bill. And if we haven't met that goal, then they're not billed. We have a stop billing procedure where, if we're not delivering on the uptime we promised you, we make it right by not billing you for that. But then the other major factor inside a facility is utilization. Is every available electron being used? And so that's outside of curtailment. If the facility is curtailing, then that electron is not available. But what we're looking for inside of facilities is high uptime and high utilization, where you're in 98 to 100% on both of those categories. And in fact, we publish a weekly newsletter, as well as it's widely available on our website, our facility updates, where you can see a map of all of our facilities and how well they're doing. And it's looked at weekly. And so last week, we had 4 facilities that were over 27 megawatts total, spread over 4 facilities, were 100% uptime. Like there was no downtime. But then one of those facilities, if we look back into January, they had substantial snow, and so the facility wasn't curtailed because electricity prices were high. There was so much snow, it shut down everything. Like snow piled outside of the air filters outside. It was sucking snow inside. So much snow that literally the facility couldn't operate. And so customers experienced downtime there. Typically that's going to be inside that marginal 95% a year. I mentioned we had two types of customers. The other type of customer is a large institutional customer. They're a family office, they're a fund, they're high net worth, and they own 100, 1,000. Our largest customer owns 10,000 machines. We have multiple customers with thousands of machines. That customer, they want to take advantage of the energy arbitrage. And in order to do that, they're basically capitalizing a facility that we operate for them. So whether they're buying the container or they're an investor in the facility and now we're their operator, when you are able to deploy large amounts of capital, then you can start to take advantage of some of that energy arbitrage. And they want to. They want to be able to say, hey, we're mining today, but we're not mining tomorrow. And we've developed complex systems that allow us to do that.
I mean, you mentioned utilization there. I can tell you now, having just received literally all the February results, none of the miners were getting anywhere near that sort of utilization. In fact, I'm going to say the average probably about 80% across the board, which means a lot of miners were switching off to let demand, the domestic demand be utilized for the cold weather, but also, especially in Texas, even the likes of Iron, Riot, and Cypher were switching off machines because they're on the market rate down there, and they'll switch off very quickly and then restart again once the rates drop, because I think it's every 15 minutes in ERCOT the price of electricity changes. So for you guys to be achieving higher than obviously 95%, that's some going. There was no miner. I think the highest we had was CleanSpark at 9%. And we get that data because they give us their total hash rate, and then they give us their operating hash rate, and you can very quickly determine from their Bitcoin mined what they should have mined with their full hash rate plugged in over that period. So utilization is pretty much the difference between what they achieved and what they should have achieved.
Well, let me lean into that. Is that when you're a self miner, right? So Compass, we operate machines for other people, and again, most of those customers want their machines running all the time. But if you're a self miner and you're running hundreds of megawatts, it's smart to look day of economics. Hey, the electricity is too expensive today, that we would be better off like not spending resources or even just acquiring Bitcoin. And so when I look at some of those reports, it doesn't bother me to see a large publicly traded company making a decision to power down their machines, even through what we call self-curtailment. And then the other side is demand response, which I know like we're so passionate about. There's no other industry like ours that can be a large consumer of power, which is good for the grid. You need large buyers of power in order to continue to build out new generations. So if you're going to build a new school in a new neighborhood, it's going to need new electricity built for it, and that is expensive, and you need large customers willing to do that. But when you think of not just the school, but the hospital and the local community and thousands of houses, we all know naturally that the school and the hospital and the houses need the electricity more than our computers do. So the ability for our computers to turn off in a moment's notice and give that energy back to the grid is really revolutionary. There's no other industry like ours.
That's an awesome statement. One final question I want to ask, just because you're obviously very well versed in the Bitcoin mining community and the mining economic world. I wanted to get your take, Curtis, on the global hash rate. This is one that Anthony and I have scratched our head at a few times recently. It seems to continually be going up, obviously making it more difficult from an economic standpoint for the miners, whether you're at Compass or a public miner. However, the hash price, the Bitcoin price, as we've just seen, is pulled back. It's not anywhere close to where it was at this point in the last cycle. What do you make of this global hash rate seeming to come online at no end?
I think it's completely to be expected, right? People with large amounts of capital. So if you're an individual and you're trying to buy one miner for your own reasons because you found Bitcoin, right? You're not making the same type of decisions as if you're a nation state or a large private equity group who needs to put your capital into some place where it can produce a different type of return. And mining Bitcoin for the future is like hash rate's going to go up and to the right forever is my prediction. Just with Bitcoin price, you obviously see fluctuations, but they're typically marginal. Like when we saw a difficulty adjustment just a few weeks ago, I think there was a 3.2% downward difficulty adjustment, and that was celebratory because it brought some like older generation machines where, hey, we're actually making a little bit of money today if you're looking at spot price. So what do I take of it? The money that is being invested in order to deploy new hash rate is printed fiat money, and they're just continuing to print fiat money, and it is going somewhere. And deploying your if you've been able to put your hands on some of that printed fiat money, it's either going to melt away like an ice cube, or you're going to invest it into an asset. And Bitcoin mining has become a new asset class. And if you see any of the fundamentals that I do, that Bitcoin is a long-term value, and when you mine it, you can typically mine it at the lowest marginal cost. Or if you like mining Bitcoin for the future because it's non-KYC and you're not sure what's going to happen in your local government, global hash rate will continue to be up and to the right forever, is Curtis's prediction.
Makes sense. Hey, that was a great discussion. I know we're almost at time here, Curtis. We wanted to give you the opportunity to close out. I know we covered a lot of ground today, but I'll say on behalf of Anthony and I both, that was an excellent interview.
Oh, well, that's so nice of you. There was one thing that I'd hoped we would discuss, and it's just a personal passion of mine. So, I live in Kansas. I'm in Lawrence, Kansas, outside of the Kansas City area, and we have a worldwide team, but we have a very large footprint in Denver. We have our Denver Service Center where all of our machines are cleaned and tested and deployed from. It's where our largest number of, physically located employees are. And inside of the city of Denver, an amazing Bitcoin community has been born. It's called The Space. So when you think of Bitcoin Park in Nashville or Bitcoin Commons in Austin, it is another fantastic Bitcoin community. They own a building. Bitcoiners do co-working inside of there, and they also have regular Bitcoin education. And so that leads me into, we now host a monthly Bitcoin mining operations meetup. So I'm lucky that I've been able to travel the country for Compass and, been to a lot of Bitcoin meetups. And we mentioned freedom money. There's a lot of freedom money, fix the money, fix the world. And there's even bit devs meetups where it's very technically orientated on the code and core devs. And that's good for people who like that. And there's even in Houston, the Houston Bitcoin Energy Meetup is probably the best meetup in the world. It's ran by Parker Lewis, who has a long pedigree in Bitcoin. It's currently hosted at the Digital Wildcatters office. So that Houston Energy Meetup. But what I'm getting to, Bryce and Anthony, is we are now hosting a monthly technical mining operations meetup in Denver that is really geared towards the person who really knows how to plug in 1,000 miners, or they want to. It's the in the weeds details of air filters on PDUs, of logistics. So we're in our 5th month now. We launched in November. This is a personal passion of mine. It's second Thursday of every month. So if you or your audience are coming into Denver and you're excited about Bitcoin or Bitcoin mining, check out The Space, and then check out our meetup second Thursday of every month.
I caught some. I think it was on YouTube. The last one there. I think was it you and Shannon were on the stage talking about certain things.
That could have been a couple
Yeah,
months ago when
yeah,
Shannon and I were on. But
yeah.
yeah, so at our launch, we had 120 people attend our launch. That was amazing in November. Attendance was down. It's winter in December, and then attendance has been back up January, February. I'll be there this week. I'm not able to travel in every month from Kansas, but it's amazing that we fill the room, and then also hundreds of people, even 1,000 or more people, are joining in online and watching the live stream or the recording afterwards. So it's just amazing that we're like, this is really a passion of mine. I'm meetup orientated. I'm teacher first heart, and so this Bitcoin meetup, technical mining operations, has been a passion of mine.
That's great. And another awesome example of what Bitcoin mining does for the local community. So with that being said, Curtis, we used the full hour. You guys can see exactly why ABC here like talking so much at the conferences together. An easy guy to get along with. Curtis, thanks so much for coming on the show. Congratulations on the recent promotion. And thanks for giving us insight into the business model and your mind in terms of Bitcoin and your outlook here. You guys make sure to check out the Compass Mining website. If you're in the Denver area, the meetups sound like a great idea. Hit the like button. Feel free to subscribe. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now.